Genghis Khan is a figure that has become synonymous with conquest and military expansion, and his legacy as the founder of the Mongol Empire has cemented his place as one of the most crucial and controversial figures in world history. Genghis Khan ensured that the might of the Mongol Empire would be feared for many centuries to come, and he left a trail of death, bloodshed and terror for any who dared to oppose him. Indeed, the battle and deeds of Genghis Khan are already well considered across many videos on YouTube. And that is not the purpose of this video or channel. Today we will be concentrating on something entirely different, and the part of Genghis Khan's life that intrigues me the most, which is the enigmatic death of this great Mongol leader who at the height of his power would meet his unexpected demise. The mystique behind his death and the extraordinary measures taken to ensure Genghis Khan's body would never be found has led to many theories and discourses as to the most plausible cause of death for the great Khan. And in this video we will do a deep dive into the mysterious death of Genghis and try to better understand what could have caused the passing of the great Mongol conqueror who held the world in the palm of his hand till he suddenly and unexpectedly didn't. The first theory we will be discussing argues that Genghis Khan died from blood loss due to castration, which is the unfortunate and painful removal of a male's family jewels, or the male gonad if we are being more specific. But how is it possible anyone could get in such close proximity to the mighty Genghis Khan with the weapon and perform the deadly deed? This is an excellent question which will be further elaborated and made clear once the events leading up to this castration theory are better understood. During the year 1226, on his way back to Mongolia from a successful military campaign in Persia, Genghis Khan is informed of a rebellion having started in Xia province, China. Genghis had previously subdued the Xia region many years earlier, and the fact that this Chinese province was still a thorn in his side infuriated Genghis, and he ordered an immediate march towards Xia by his Mongol forces. He was intent on making an example out of the ruling Tangut family and reaffirm Mongol dominance within the region. And by 1227 the city had fallen with one last prince of the Tangut lineage still holding out, but he would inevitably be defeated as well, and the last male member of the Tangut family would be captured and executed just a few days later. And as was common practice after any Mongol conquest, Genghis Khan would get his choice of female captives to take for his harem, and he had his eye on a particularly beautiful unnamed Tangut princess. Forcing her into his bedchamber, Genghis was ready to enjoy the spoils of war, but his plans quickly fell apart, as at some point he must have had his pants and undergarments removed and was probably preoccupied with one thing or another, allowing the Tangut princess to quickly produce a hidden blade from within her hair, and before Genghis knew what had occurred, she had castrated him. I am assuming that at this point Genghis would be lying on the floor bleeding out, perhaps screaming in pain, and the princess would capitalize on this opportunity by sneaking out of the bedchamber and making her way to the Yellow River, where she would throw herself into the river and drown within its strong currents. Today this river is called Khatun Gol, the river of the princess, to mark the supposed final moments of the Tangut princess. And with all things being considered, including the lack of any contemporary historical records confirming this death method for Genghis, as well as the time lapse between this theory first being mentioned and the death of Genghis being centuries apart, makes the validity and possibility of the castration theory being the source of Genghis Khan's death highly improbable and unlikely. Furthermore, there are just too many unrealistic elements that need to be true for this discourse to have occurred. Firstly, the guard standing outside Genghis Khan's bedchamber would have heard him screaming from losing his testicles, and they would have immediately detained the princess, making any escape nearly impossible. And there would also be some historical evidence recorded of this event if it were to be true. The second theory we will be considering in this video is a bit more vague and comes directly from the Hypatian Codex, which is Kievan Rus' historical text dating all the way back to the 13th century, so only a few decades after Genghis Khan's death. The Hypatian Codex affirms that Genghis Khan was killed in battle against the Tangut while trying to subdue the rebellion in China. Furthermore, this theory is also corroborated by Venetian explorer Marco Polo, who wrote that Genghis Khan was killed after getting hit by an arrow, which led to an infection of the wound and his eventual death. But it is important to emphasize that neither of these are contemporary sources, so it is difficult to confirm either of these theories as historically accurate or not. But a death by battle is definitely a plausible discourse when you consider the fact that Genghis Khan was in the middle of a fierce campaign against the Chinese, and he would not be the first ruler to meet their demise at the end of a stray arrow. There is also speculation that Genghis may have already been suffering from an illness during this time, and he may have wanted to end his life in battle rather than slowly and painfully succumbing to an illness. Whatever the truth may be, it is definitely possible that a warrior from birth like Genghis would want to die on the battlefield, but I have to emphasize that this death in battle discourse is one that I still consider as unlikely, since there is stronger evidence for other theories which will be mentioned further along in this video. Another popular consideration about how Genghis Khan may have met his demise is that he passed from injuries that were sustained after falling from his horse. And this is the proposition that is presented in the Mongol chronicle The Secret History of the Mongols, which is a first-hand account of the life of Genghis Khan and many other Mongol figures. But the author of this text is unknown, so its authenticity is difficult to validate. But according to the text, it states that after ordering his army to march on China to eliminate the Tangut once and for all, Genghis stayed behind in southern Mongolia to wait out the winter, and during this time he would often be seen hunting wild horses in Arbuka. However, at some point, and it is not clarified how, but Genghis would fall off his horse, resulting in several internal and external injuries. It is also further elaborated in The Secret History of the Mongols that as the night passed, the flesh of Genghis Khan grew hot, which definitely points towards some type of fever-based illness being the cause of death for Genghis even in this theory. And the final theory we will be discussing is the one that I find to be the most probable and best evidenced discourse in regards to the passing of the great Mongol conqueror, and that is death by bubonic plague or disease. It is already well documented that during this time both the Mongol and Chinese armies were suffering from symptoms that are in line with what we can identify as the bubonic plague today. And the History of Wan, a historical text commissioned by the Ming dynasty in the 14th century, also highlights that Genghis Khan contracted a feverish illness in August of 1227, and that the sickness killed him within 8 days. The original assumption by many historians was that Genghis may have died from typhoid fever, but the popular discourse now seems to point towards the bubonic plague being the primary candidate for the illness that may have taken the great Khan's life. Common symptoms of bubonic plague are fever, shivering, headaches, delirium, and pain in the limbs. And many of these features were present amongst Genghis and many soldiers in both armies during this time. And if you consider the fact that this disease was infecting others at quite a rapid pace, alongside the knowledge that Genghis Khan was well into his 60s at this point in his life, it would not be hard to imagine that an infectious disease could have killed him, especially since death by illness is mentioned as a contributing factor in 3 out of the 4 most common theories about the death of Genghis Khan. So it is in my humble opinion that death by plague or some other type of feverish illness is the most feasible cause of death for Genghis Khan. But let me know in the comments below how you think Genghis may have died, or if perhaps there are any other theories out there that may be worthy of consideration. And lastly, remember, if you want to explore the death of history's greatest figures, then subscribe to my channel Historical Exit, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.